Welcome back to the channel. Thank y'all for hanging with me. It's got a little shower. Look at that swim bait. Gone. So the shad are spawning. Low light conditions, that's the most important thing about the shad spawn. So maybe that last hour, that last 30 minutes for sure, the first 30 minutes, the first hour of the morning. But look at that fish. And this isn't a big fish by any means, but that's a post-spawn bass eating his fill. So we're gonna get this fish back, and man, that is crazy. I mean, that is a blimp. So whenever the water gets to 70 degrees, that is typically when the shad are gonna start spawning. So when that water reaches 70, it's kind of the end of the bass spawn, and you are going to start seeing, especially on these low light days, cloudy days, shad spawning. You're gonna see them busting all over the place. You will also see gizzard shad. So most of the time, the real prolific spawn where you just see big balls of bait on your down scan, or you see them busting all around, those are going to be the threadfin. So I have a lot of threadfin imitators on the front deck of my boat, and I'm going to go through all of those. This big swim bait, more of the gizzard shad. But if you have a lot of gizzard shad on your lake, then the big swim bait is going to be something you also want to have rigged up. But real quickly, I'll go through all the shad spawn baits that you should have tied on, starting with my favorite. So first one would be a spinnerbait. So this is kind of a shad spawn type spinnerbait. A bunch of willow leaves. I did a video last year around this time, basically showing you how to make one of these yourself. But I like white. I think white is super important. So this is one of the spinnerbaits I'll throw, but I keep a few different options. So a couple other ones would be a 1/2 ounce. You're gonna see that all of these have willow blades. Now, when you put 2 willow leaf blades on a spinnerbait, you're not gonna feel it as good when you're throwing it with Colorado blades. So that is why sometimes I'll go with 1 willow leaf and 1 Colorado. I fished around a lot of chopped up eelgrass, so your spinnerbait is constantly being fouled up. That Colorado blade kind of tells me there's grass on it or not. So the Colorado blade, you're gonna feel a lot better. And white, your blue glimmer, natural colors, depending on your water clarity. If you have super clear water, go with that blue glimmer. But most of the time you're doing this on low light. So even if you do have clearer water, a white will still work really well. Now, the next one would be a swim jig. Now, you can put a swim bait on the back of a swim jig, but whenever the shad are spawning, I like to move my bait super slow. So that's what I like about the craw style. Now, this isn't imitating a craw. This is imitating a ball of bait. So when you see this in the water, you're pulsing it. You can fish it super slow and keep it where the shad are actually thinking this is real. The shad are trying to spawn with this. So they'll be all around your bait. That's what's going to be attracting those fish. Now, the next one, kind of going into what I was saying about the kind of what I was going into with the spinnerbait, being your bait's fouled up, it's not coming through the grass. So there's going to be some situations where you're just not going to be able to fish those baits. That's where I really like a shallow running crankbait. So this is going to be running in those same depths, 2 to 5 feet that I'm fishing those other baits, and I can fish around the same types of cover. And again, white. Now, again, this is first thing in the morning. So even if your water is super clear, you can get away with these whiter, but that is a more natural color. It's kind of like a sexy shad, but those fish can really see it because they're swimming all around and they're aggressive. Now, the last thing I will say, and there's a couple other baits, a chatterbait, a buzzbait, those baits all work as well. But if I just had 3. It would be the spinnerbait, the swim jig, and the shallow running crankbait to mimic threadfin, and then 1 or 2 baits on the deck to mimic the gizzard shad. And that's where I'm going with that bigger 6-inch swim bait, because you will not only see threadfin shad jumping around, fish blowing up on them, you'll also see big gizzard shad, and it's a little bit different. Threadfin, it looks like there's a whole school of them. The gizzard shad, it looks like maybe there's 1 or 2, and the gizzard shad just kind of skip across the water. It's an obviously bigger forage, and you'll notice that as well. One other thing I will say, you won't just see them up on the bank. You won't just see them busting and jumping around by wood, grass. If you have some rock, you will also see big balls of bait on your depth finder. So keep an eye on your depth finder. You want to continuously be seeing that. And then here's the other thing. A lot of times they'll be blowing up over here, they'll be blowing up over there, they'll be blowing up over there. You have to realize that just because the fish are underneath the water doesn't mean that they've left. So don't start chasing smoke because you keep seeing every 10 minutes fish blow up over there. You know they're still here. They're going to continuously stay in this area and keep eating the bait. There's no reason for them to swim somewhere else. So just because you haven't seen them blow up on this spot doesn't mean they've left. As long as you are catching some, as long as you are getting some, feedback from not only the bait fish but the bass, or not only the bass but the bait fish. So that is going to be my 2 cents on the shad spawn. And here's another thing. This is something that I've always had tied on when I'm fishing around the schooling fish, any type of situation like that, is a Carolina rig. A Carolina rig, doesn't look like a schooling fish bait, but when those fish go down, a lot of them feed, and then they just kind of sit there. They sit underneath these balls of bait. So a Carolina rig, and they're just going crazy right over here. A lot of times when everything just fizzles off, there are going to be fish in that area. So Carolina rig is a great bait around schooling fish. And, I'm probably imitating a brush hog or something on this bait, but you got to realize every fish in the lake is feeding on these shad. It's not just bass that are keying in on the shad spawn. It's gar, it's catfish, it's everything. It's bluegill. So a bass will still eat a bluegill. Now, obviously, this isn't going to be my first choice, but it is still an option when it maybe is fizzling off, slowing down. Carolina rig, I really like that. And I will say this, whenever you're fishing around the shad spawn, you're in the post spawn. So you have to kind of realize when this shad spawn thing goes away, the rest of your day is going to be pretty tough. As long as it doesn't stay cloudy and low light and it gets sunny, the fishing's going to probably get pretty tough. So a lot of times you'll see it just go crazy. Guys catch every fish they weigh in the first 30 minutes, and then 1 or 2 bites the rest of the day. So that can happen because you have a big feeding period anytime in bass fishing. The rest of the day the fish have already eaten, so it's kind of a slow feeding period. So you have to kind of take all of that into account on how important that morning is. Get out of bed early, stay out there late, whatever, but that first hour and that last hour, or anytime you have a lot of clouds, so it could be a front's rolling through or something like that, it's important to stay out there because that's going to cause those shad to spawn. But that is it for the shad spawn. It can be the most magical 30 minutes to an hour you'll ever have fishing. Try these baits next time you're around the shad spawn. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.